Hello everyone. In this video, we'll do the analysis of today's current affairs. So the daily current affairs analysis of 23rd September 2021. We will do that. So what are the topics that we will discuss? First, we will discuss the impact of climate change on El Nino Southern Oscillation. What the impact of climate change is on the concept of El Nino and Southern Oscillation. So first, we will discuss that what El Nino Southern Oscillation is, how it affects the various wind patterns and the rainfall patterns across the globe, and especially its impact on the Indian monsoons, and what the climate change has the what impact the climate change has on this concept. Okay, next we will see the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. We will see what are the features of this act and how it is different from the previous act that was initially in place, and what are its issues that are associated with this act, and what is the stand of the government on this, and the stand of the judiciary, particularly the Supreme Court, on this. Okay, next we'll see the we'll see the NCLT and ITAT. Okay, ITAT, so National Company Law Tribunal and Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. We will discuss about that what are its powers and the duties of these two bodies. Next we'll see it is this is national. Okay, this is the misprint. This is national intelligence grid or net grid. We will see what are the functions of net grid, who is the implementing agency of this, and we will discuss that. Next is the train monetization plan. Okay, so recently the monetization pipeline infrastructure monetization pipe national monetization pipeline was unveiled by the government. So going forward on that, we will see what is the train monetization plan of the government of India, and what are its benefits, challenges associated with that, and what is the way forward. Next we will see for prelims specific content, we will see LCA. We will read about LCA MK2. So directly a question can be asked in prelims from this topic, so we will also discuss that. Okay, so first we will see what is the impact of climate change on El Nino and Southern Oscillation. Okay, so this topic is particularly important for GS1. It can be asked as a 10 marker or a 15 marker question in mains paper 1, because geography is an important topic in that. So this is the topic mentioned, that important geophysical phenomena such as earthquakes, tsunami, volcanic activity, cyclone, etc. Okay, so this topic is this news is why it is in news. So there is a growing body of research suggesting that climate change can cause extreme and more frequent El Nino and La Nina effects. Okay, so as we have seen recently that the climate change, concern regarding climate change is growing all over the world. Okay, and there have been major initiatives which have been undertaken by all the countries, be it the developed countries like the US, UK, and other such countries like Russia, and be it the developing countries like India, China, Brazil, etc. And all these countries are more vigilant about the issue of climate change, because climate change is linked to an extra variety of many other things which can disrupt the daily lifestyle and also the functioning of the ecosystem, and it will overall it will disrupt the overall functioning of the earth. Okay, so this there has been growing research which has suggested that the recent occurrence of climate change and the growing instances of climate change, they can cause an extreme and more frequent forms of El Nino and La Nina effects, which can directly have an impact. This can directly have an impact on the rainfall patterns and the wind patterns across the globe, and it can directly or indirectly affect the food security, water security, and the overall it can overall impact the ease of living of the citizens, and the also the flora and the fauna alike. Okay, so a study was conducted recently on this using one of the South Korea's fastest supercomputers. Okay, so what are the findings of the latest study? We will see what the study mentions, that the increasing atmospheric carbon dioxide can cause a weakening of future simulated ENSO sea surface temperature variability. Okay, so the atmospheric carbon dioxide which has been increasing recently, it can cause a weakening of the future simulated El Nino southern oscillation sea surface temperature variability. Okay, so when the sea surface temperature variability weakens, so it can directly and indirectly impact the wind patterns above the sea, and it can disrupt the marine environment, and also all the aspects which are related to the marine environment, like the fisheries, the aquatic economy, or the economy of the coastal regions. Everything is interlinked. Okay, so next is the future El Nino events will lose heat to the atmosphere more quickly due to the evaporation of water vapor. Okay, so when the future El Nino effects will lose heat to the atmosphere at a more rapid pace, what will happen that the already enhanced rate of melting of glaciers will ultimately enhance, because the globe like the GHG greenhouse gas effect will ultimately enhance because of the enhanced rate of CO2 emissions, and thereby the average temperatures of the earth will increase, and ultimately the melting of glaciers and everything about that will increase, and it will ultimately lead to melting of glaciers at a rapid pace, and also thawing of the permafrost, which can prove to be very disastrous for overall functioning of the earth, because a lot of lifestyle and a lot of population, especially in the Arctic region and the southern the northern Russian region, depends upon on the permafrost region also. Okay, so in the future there will be a reduced temperature difference between the eastern and western tropical Pacific, inhibiting the development of temperature extremes during the ENSO cycle. Okay, so because of this enhanced climate change impact, the eastern and western tropical Pacific regions will have reduced temperature difference, which will ultimately prove to be disastrous for the marine ecosystem of the Pacific Ocean. Okay, and it will ultimately impact the overall functioning of the entire earth. Okay, so next is also there can be a weakening of tropical instability waves in the projected future, which can cause a disruption of the El Nino event. Okay, so now we will see that what are the El Nino and La Nina effects. Okay, so they are the two natural climate phenomena occurring across the tropical Pacific Ocean and influence the weather conditions all over the world. Okay, so it can be a statement, this can be a statement in prelims, that the El Nino and La Nina concepts occur across the Indian Ocean, or for that matter over the Atlantic Ocean, but they only occur over the tropical Pacific Ocean, and okay, and they influence the weather conditions all over the world. Okay, so next is the while the El Nino period is characterized by warming or increased sea surface temperatures in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean, the La Nina event causes the water in the eastern Pacific Ocean to be colder than usual. Okay, so El Nino, what it does, it leads to increased sea surface temperature in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean, whereas the La Nina event, it causes the water in the eastern Pacific Ocean to be colder than the usual temperature of the water, which is in the normal circumstances. Okay, so together both these concepts of El Nino and La Nina, they are called as El Nino Southern Oscillation, ENSO, or El Nino Southern Oscillation. Okay, so this is the diagrammatical representation, which you can see that El Nino, what it does, it leads to warming of the temperatures over the eastern and the western, eastern and the central tropical Pacific Ocean, and the La Nina event is, it causes to the, it leads to the colding or colder temperatures in the eastern Pacific Ocean. Okay, so next is what causes El Nino, like why does El Nino occur. Okay, so El Nino sets in when there is an anomaly in the pattern of temperature difference across the sea surface. The westward blowing trade winds weaken along the equator, and due to changes in air pressure, the surface water moves eastwards to coast of northern South America. So as we know that winds always move from region of high pressure to low pressure. So as the air pressure difference changes, so ultimately the surface water moves eastwards towards the coast of the northern South America. Okay, so the central and eastern Pacific regions warm up for over 6 months and result in an El Nino condition. Okay, so the central and eastern Pacific regions, the water over these regions, they warm up for at least around 6 to 7 months, and ultimately it results in the El Nino condition. Okay, so what are the important topics for prelims? What is the El Nino effect? What is the La Nina? What is ENSO? When do these events occur? And impact of ENSO on Asia, Africa, and Australia. Okay, so the source of this topic is the Indian Express. This news was taken from Indian Express. Next is the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. So this is a topic important for GS2. It can be a question, a potential question in GS mains paper 2. Okay, it can ask what is the significance. The UPSC can ask discuss the significance of the Citizenship Amendment Act, also discuss the concerns associated with it, and the poten and the steps taken by the government to reduce or to reduce those concerns. So topic is Parliament and state legislatures, structure, functioning, conduct of business, powers and privileges, and issues arising out of these. So why this topic is in news recently? It is in news because the Tamil Nadu Assembly had recently adopted a resolution urging the center to repeal the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. Okay, so while doing this, Tamil Nadu has joined the states like Kerala and West Bengal in passing resolutions against the CAA, Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. So what is the reason for Tamil Nadu to do such an action? The state of Tamil Nadu has said the law is not in tune with the secular principles laid down in our constitution, and also not conducive to the communal harmony that prevails in India. Okay, so what is the background of this act? We will see. The Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 was notified on December 12, 2019, and came into force from January 10, 2020. So what it does, it seeks to amend the Citizenship Act 1955. The Citizenship Act 1955 provides various ways in which citizenship may be acquired. So there are basically 4 ways in which a person can get Indian citizenship. So what are these ways? It provides for citizenship by birth, by descent, by registration, or by naturalization, and also by incorporation of the territory into India. So either someone is born in India, or someone has a descent in India, or someone has a registration by which he or she can get a citizenship of India, and also by naturalization, which is normally 14 years for all the persons who have been living in India. They must be living from the last 14 years, and at least from the last 11 years they must be living continuously. Okay, so the CAA Act 2019, Amendment Act 2019, what it does, it reduces this it reduces this the period of naturalization for particular persecuted minorities, which are the Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists, Parsis, and Christians, who have come from three countries of Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan. Okay, for 2 6 years from the present 14 years. Okay, so those from these communities who had come to India till December 31, 2014, facing religious persecution in their respective countries, will not be treated as illegal immigrants, but will be given Indian citizenship. The act provides that the central government also may cancel the registration of OCI on certain grounds like traffic rules violation and certain other violations. Okay, so what are the exceptions under this act? The act does not apply to tribal areas of Tripura, Mizoram, Assam, Meghalaya, because of being included in the sixth schedule of the constitution. So as these states of Mizoram, Assam, Meghalaya, and Tripura are included in the sixth schedule of the constitution, so that is why this Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019 does not apply to these areas. Also, the areas that fall under the inner line permit notified under the Bengal, Eastern Commission's entire regulation 1873 will also be outside the Act's purview. Okay, so you also must see what are the states which are covered under the inner line permit. Arunachal Pradesh, there is Meghalaya, it is there. So you must see the complete list. It can be a potential question statement in prelims. Okay, so issues surrounding the law. What are the issues which are surrounded? What are the concerns associated with the CAA Amendment Act 2019? So it violates the people who protest against this act. They say that this act, what it does, it violates the basic tenets of the constitution. Illegal immigrants are distinguished on the basis of religion, and it is also perceived to be a demographic threat to the indigenous communities, because the already scarce resources which are available in India will have to be shared with the people who have come from outside. And there is a fear in the indigenous communities that they are already scarce resources which are already very meager and available in very less quantities to them. They can also will be compromised, and they will have to share those resources with people who have come from outside, and it will ultimately lead to reducing or impacting their ease of living in a negative manner. Okay, so it makes illegal migrants eligible for citizenship on the basis of religion. This may violate Article 14 of the Constitution, which guarantees the right to equality. So it attempts to naturalize the citizenship of illegal immigrants in the region. It allows cancellation of OCI registration for violation of any law. This is a wide ground that may cover a range of violations, including minor offences like traffic violations, etc. So, what is the stand of the central government on this? Central government has said that the persecuted minorities, particularly the Hindus, Jews, Buddhists, Parsis, especially in these three countries of Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, they are treated very badly there. Many atrocities and many human right violations are done against them, and that is why it is a very important that the protection be provided to these communities, so that they do not have an illegal migrant status in India, and they are provided with all the benefits which are provided to the Indian citizens in India. And next is that the government has also said that this list will is not static, and it will be reviewed periodically, and the additions will be made in this list periodically after holding discussions through multiple channels, and after discussing with multiple stakeholders. This list will be updated. It is not stationary, and it is not that only these communities will always be covered in this list, and rest other communities the people live Tamils in Sri Lanka, etc., will not be covered at all. They can be covered in the future. Okay, so prelims hot link. What are the important topics from concepts for prelims which can be asked from this topic? About the CAA itself, its features, which are the religions which are covered under this, countries which are covered under this, what are the exceptions under this act. Okay, so the source of this news is the Hindu. So next is the about NCLT and ITAT. So this topic is important from the perspective of GS paper 2, and the topic of from the main syllabus is important statutory bodies. So why is this in news? The government has recently appointed 31 people as judicial, technical, and accountant members at the National Company Law Tribunal (NCLT) and the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal (ITAT). These developments assume significance as they come amid the Supreme Court flagging concerns about vacancies in various tribunals. So recently the Supreme Court had raised its concerns that why the central government is showing reluctancy in appointing the members of the tribunal, whereas it has cleared the appointment of the judges. So why the government is not showing keenness in appointing the members of the tribunals at a very at an equally rapid rapid pace, which it has appointed, which is it has cleared the appointment of the judges. Okay, so Supreme Court had given the government a time period, so the government has acted accordingly to the directions of Supreme Court, and that is why the central government has recently appointed 31 people as the judicial, technical, and accountant members at various tribunals like the National Company Law Tribunal (NCLT) and the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal (ITAT). So we'll see the background of this news. There are around 250 posts which are lying vacant at various key tribunals and the appellate tribunals such as the NCLT, the DRT Dispute Resolution Tribunal, TDSAT, and the SAT. Supreme Court had recently flagged concerns saying the center was emasculating tribunals by not appointing officials to the quasi-judicial bodies that are facing a staff crunch. So if these bodies have, face a staff crunch, what it does, it impacts the functioning of these bodies, because what are the purpose of what is the main purpose of constituting a tribunal? It is that the burden of the judiciary should be is reduced, and also the citizens who are approaching these tribunals, they are provided a judicious and a expeditious solution of their concern, because in judiciary a lot of time period has to be given in before a final decision can be made. But the main function and the main aim objective of these tribunals is that judicious and an expeditious disposal of the cases is done at a rapid pace as compared to the judiciary, so that the justice is provided at a very rapid manner to the people who are approaching these tribunals, because there's a saying that justice delayed is justice denied. So that is the main functioning and that is the main objective of these tribunals. And if there's a huge vacancy in appointing the members of these tribunals, it will ultimately lead to the overburdening of cases in these tribunals also, and ultimately impact the functioning of these tribunals, which will reduce the trust that the citizens and the people who approach these tribunals have on these institutions. Okay, so it is not fruitful, keeping in mind the democratic nature of the country, and also keeping in mind the government's enhanced focus on minimum government, maximum governance. Okay, so we'll see about the NCLT. It is a quasi-judicial body in India that adjudicates issues relating to companies in India. So all the concerns which are associated with companies, their incorporation, about their members, about their functioning, about their closer, or about any issue which is related to any company in India which is instituted in India, that matter is taken up by the NCLT. So it was established on 1st June 2016 under the Companies Act 2013. So it was formed based on the recommendations of the Justice Iradi Committee. So it can be a potential statement in the prelims. Okay, so it also deals with the matters mainly relating to companies laws and the insolvency law. And the terms of members, what is the terms of the members? Appointments will be for 5 years from the date of assumption of charge or till attaining the age of 65 years or until further orders. So these can be potential statements for prelims. Okay, so you have to keep these statements and keep these factual information in mind, especially for the prelims, because in mains the analysis component is more important, that what is the functioning of NCLT, what is the significance of NCLT, or what is the significance of the tribunals, what are the issues and challenges associated with these tribunals, what are the steps which the government has taken to improve the functioning of these tribunals, and what are the suggestive measures that can be further taken in the future to further enhance the functioning and the overall objective of these tribunals. So the analysis component is more important for the mains paper. Okay, mains papers. But for the prelims, these factual information is very important. Okay, so you have to keep this in mind. Next is the ITAT, Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. It deals with the income tax matters. It is a statutory body. Okay. Okay, it is a statutory body in the field of direct taxes, and its orders are accepted as final on findings of fact. So ITAT was the first tribunal to be created on 25th January 1941 and is also known as the Mother Tribunal. So this can be a very potential statement for prelims, in 2019 prelims there was a statement, I think, on petroleum. There was a certain agency on petroleum, that this agency was the first to be created, the first regulatory agency to be created in India. Okay, so the UPSC examiner can give a statement like ITAT was the first tribunal to be created on 25th January 1951. It can also change the state, number. It can also change the date here. So in that case, that statement will be wrong. So you have to keep this factual information in mind. So with a view to ensuring highest degree of independence of the ITAT, it functions under the Department of Legal Affairs in the Ministry of Law and Justice and is kept away from any kind of control by the Ministry of Finance. So ITAT functions under the Ministry of Law and Justice, whereas the income tax is governed by the income tax, laws are governed by the Ministry of Finance. This is also a very important fact about this body. So the orders passed by the ITAT can be subjected to appellate challenge on substantial questions of law before the respective high court. So, 8 tribunals dissolved via bill, the Cinematographic Act 1952, Film Certification Appellate Tribunal. This has been abolished. All these tribunals have been abolished. You can see this list for further understanding about this thing. So, prelims hotling, what are tribunals? Constitutional provisions in this regard, composition and functions, and also the overview of the latest ordinance. Next, we will see the National Intelligence Grid or the NAT grid. So GS paper 3, for GS paper 3, this is important, infrastructure related issues. So why this is in news? Prime Minister Narendra Modi is soon expected to launch the National Intelligence Grid or NAT grid that aims to provide a cutting edge technology to enhance India's counter terror capabilities. So it ultimately will enhance India's counter terror capabilities, which is ultimately very important to protect the sovereignty of India and also to promote the aspects of new India and further enhance the prospects of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and Sabka Vishwas, because if the terrorism will be under control, so the development particularly in the states of Jammu and Kashmir and also in the northeastern states will be can be undertaken at a very rapid pace by integrating the local population of that region, by listening to the local population, by listening to the demands of the local population, by combining the thoughts of the local population and also the local governments of these regions, so that the developments can take place at the grassroots level and so that the citizens of these regions can ultimately get benefited from the schemes of the government at a very rapid pace. So that the human capital of these regions can be enhanced and their contribution to the development of their own region and also to the development of India, it can be enhanced significantly. So that is why reducing the instances of corruption and keeping the instances of reducing the terrorism and reducing the instances of terrorist acts is very important. So what is NetGrid? It is envisaged as a robust mechanism to track suspects. The NetGrid can help in preventing terrorist attacks with real-time data and access to classified information like immigration, banking, individual taxpayers, air and train travels. In 2010, the Cabinet Committee on Security (CCS) had given approval to the rupees 3,400 crore NatGrid project. So who can access the data? It will be a medium for at least 10 central agencies such as the Intelligence Bureau (IB) and the Research and Analysis Wing (RAW) to access data on a secured platform. The data will be procured by NetGrid from 21 providing organizations such as the telecom, tax records, bank, immigration, etc. So from all these bodies, the NetGrid project will procure the data, and that data will be available to the at least 10 central agencies like the IB and the RAW to further enhance the India's initiative against the terrorist acts. Okay, so what are the criticisms associated with this project? NetGrid is facing opposition on charges of possible violations of privacy, as right to privacy is a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution, guaranteed by Supreme Court in the KS Puttaswamy case 2017, and leakage of confidential personal information. Its efficacy in preventing combating terror has also been questioned, given that no state agency or police force has access to its database, thus reducing the chances of immediate effective action, as only the central agencies will have access to this data. So according to few experts, digital databases such as NatGrid can be misused. Over the last 2 decades, the very digital tools that terrorists use have also become great weapons to fight the ideologies of violence. Intelligence agencies have also opposed amid fears that it would impinge on their territory and possibly result in leaks on the leads they were working on to other agencies. But why do we need NetGrid? The danger from not having a sophisticated tool like NetGrid is that if the forces it forces the police to rely on harsh and coercive means to extract information in a crude and degrading fashion. After every terrorist incident, it goes about rounding up suspects, many of who are innocent. If instead a pattern, search, and recognition system were in place, so these violations of human rights would be much fewer. NetGrid would also help the intelligence bureau keep a tab on persons with suspicious backgrounds. The police would have access to all this data, and any movement by this person would also be tracked with the help of this database. So the prelims hot link is: what is CCTNS, NatGrid aims and objectives, what is NCRB, National Crime Record Bureau, agencies covered under the NatGrid. Source of this news is The Hindu. So next is the train monetization pipeline. This is an important topic for GS paper 3, Indian economy and infrastructure. Why news concerns expressed over Centre's proposal to monetize the Darjeeling Himalayan Railway (DHR). More on this news: there are four fully functional operational railway networks in mountains and hilly terrains in India. The Darjeeling Himalayan Railway (DHR), located in the foothills of the Himalayas in West Bengal; the Nilgiris Mountain Railways, located in the Nilgiris of Tamil Nadu; the Kalka Shimla Railway, located in the Himalayan foothills of Himachal Pradesh; and the Matheran Railway, located in Maharashtra. Darjeeling Hill Railway (DHR) was built in the British era between 1879 and 1881. The Darjeeling toy train was declared as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1999. The main reason for the protest is that private companies' focus would be on profit and local aspirations of the people would also be ignored. Concerns have also been raised on how the government has taken this decision in an unilateral manner without consulting the stakeholders involved. Way forward: government should consult the stakeholders involved and create guidelines to meet their aspirations in a mutually beneficial manner. And the concerns of these people should be addressed, and the views and opinions of multiple stakeholders should be taken before finalizing any such project. So what is a World Heritage Site? A World Heritage Site is classified as a natural or man-made area or a structure that is of international importance and a space which requires a special protection. These sites are officially recognized by the UN and the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, also known as the UNESCO. So UNESCO believes that the sites classified as a World Heritage are important for humanity and they hold cultural and physical significance. So key facts: the list is maintained by the International World Heritage Program, administered by the UNESCO World Heritage Committee, composed of 21 UNESCO member states which are elected by the General Assembly. Each World Heritage Site remains part of the legal territory of the state wherein the site is located, and the UNESCO considers it in the interest of the international community to preserve each site. To be selected, a World Heritage Site must be an already classified landmark, unique in some respect, as a geographically and historically identifiable place having special cultural or physical significance. So prelims hot link is about the Darjeeling Hill Railways. It can ask what is a World Heritage Site. It can be asked in prelims. UNESCO World Heritage Sites in India, that can be asked, and also about UNESCO, the composition, functioning, and regulating authority of UNESCO. It can be asked as a potential statement in prelims. So next, this news was taken from The Hindu. So next is the LCA MK2. This is particularly important for only prelims. It is a prelims specific topic. So light combat aircraft Tejas Mark II, the second generation fighter prototypes are underway in association with the DRDO's Aeronautical Development Agency (ADA). The first flight is expected to be ready by 2023. The Mk2 is 30 in 50 mm longer, featuring canards and can carry a payload of 6,500 kg. So about the new Tejas, the long-awaited indigenous fighter Tejas Mk2, which will be manufactured by the HAL Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, will go into production by 2025-2026. So that 17.5 ton weight of the Tejas Mark II will be the same weight as the Mirage, Jaguar and Gripen. So additions in the new generation, heavier standoff weapon capacity, state-of-the-art AESA radar, indigenously developed air-to-air missile Astra with a range of 70 km. When set to go into the production after the Tejas LCA order of 123 aircraft to replace the IAF's Indian Air Force's aging MiG-21S is completed. So also in the works, like what are the projects which are also in the works currently? Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft AMCA given a go ahead by IAF late last year. 25-ton fighter will be powered by two engines capable of super cruise speeds. It will also have advanced tech to ensure minimum radar signatures. So we hope that all your doubts regarding the daily current affairs will be solved after watching this lesson, and stay tuned to the YouTube channel for the daily current affairs analysis from the various sources like the Hindu, Indian Express, PIB, Down to Earth, Times of India, etc. And like, subscribe, and comment on the channel, and also share the channel. Share the link of the channel with your friends who are preparing for the exam. All the best to you. Thank you for watching the lesson.